Right, good morning everybody. Really wonderful to be here at Kyalami Grand Prix circuit with you today. I also would like to think that this is the future home for Formula One in South Africa. So it is my pleasure this morning on behalf of the role that I play as a director of Josie My Josie to have this next session looking out and zoning in, accompanied by my colleagues on stage this morning. But just one thought with you. Here we are at Kyalami. Sandton City, Sandton Central, is about 15 kilometers from here. If you go another 15 kilometers from the center of Sandton, you'll be in the center of Johannesburg CBD. And if you go another 15 kilometers from the center of Johannesburg, you'll be in the center of Soweto. So everything gets measured now in these 15-kilometer slots, heading that way, heading south, of course. And I guess if you go another 100 times that, you'll end up in Cape Town, or in fact, if you follow my directions exactly, you'll be in the sea, because it's not quite 1,500 kilometers, it's a little bit less than that. So it's really important that we center ourselves at this point. Here we are, as I said, at the Kyalami Grand Prix racetrack, but let's think about those other locations, and we'll do that with you this morning. I'm sure many of you know that on Sunday, the second largest cycle race in the world takes place in Josie and around Josie, starting in the south and making all the way to here. And it actually goes around the Grand Prix circuit. And having done it 14 times myself, I can assure you that the tarmac that's out here is the very best tarmac in Johannesburg, the best. And it's an absolute pleasure. It would be really nice if we could just keep going around and around, but we can't. So first up this morning, to give us an economic perspective on Josie and the zoning out and looking in perspective is my colleague Sifiso Skenjana. So Sifiso, I'd love to hand the clicker to you, and the honor is yours.
Thank you very much. Igama lam nguSifiso Skenjana, usibalukhulu sochenge usidweke madonela umabonela empunzini ugaduza sathi gadu gadu gadu. I introduce myself that way because I stand as one but I come as 10,000. And I think in the context of what we're here for today, we are trying to solve the 10,000s issue from an employment point of view, from a sector growth point of view, as well as really making sure that we galvanize behind each other to see the success of this particular sector. And so, first and foremost, I want to encourage you to be angry, and I want to show you that you're in good company. I've been angry about employment outcomes in the country. I've been angry about youth unemployment. I've been angry about structural transformation issues at a sectoral level. And those things are the things that will inform how we reimagine economic growth and, of course, galvanizing the growth of this particular sector. And so I put the slide up first to say I'm just as angry about an economy that is still struggling to absorb its people. And I invite you to stay angry so that we really, I think, can put in the right effort to make sure that we really solve for the employment issue as well as, of course, supporting the growth of the sector. And so I thought, when we're looking at the context of our global economy, how do we understand it insofar as our sector is impacted? and also what are the big things, the big shifts that are taking place, some of the tectonic shifts, and how do we think about, of course, what it means in the work that we do here. And so I think the first thing about kind of some of the things that we're seeing from a global point of view is, I call it a year of big politics and big politricks. Certainly, I think this year, I think there was something close to 100 countries going through political changes and political elections as well. So I think it's been a massive, massive theme. And specifically impacting the sector is the dollar smile. So the dollar smile is often spoken about as what happens to the dollar when either extremes exist. So when it's risk on and markets are happy, and then you see a little bit of dollar strength. When it's risk off and markets are jittery. And so somewhere in between is the dip, and that's why it's called the dollar smile. And so when we then talk about the sector, and of course being an exporter to the US, there's some considerations we're really going to think about our exposure, I think, to a strengthening dollar that is expected, I think, to continue. We've seen a lot of Trump trades, as they've been calling them, really, I think, again, playing the currency play at this point in time, but it's going to impact your earnings, it's going to impact your forecasting, and so really, I think how we understand the dollar smile is going to be quite important for us. Of course, there's the Trump effect. He's spoken a lot about, make America great again and localization. And so as we are then trying to grow and strengthen our relationship with the US as an importing partner of our global business services, how do we interact with that complexity? I think this is something that's going to be a theme for us as well. And of course, specifically on our position as a country on the Israeli-Palestine issue, that's got implications, and we've seen, of course, a lot of public office bearers in the US coming and talking about that this could impact our positions from a trade point of view. Of course, it's not that black and white, but I think when there's noise in the corridors, it's certainly worth listening to, even if with one ear. And of course, like I said, there's that massive political regime change is taking place in many parts of the world, and so that's been a massive theme as well. And so it's really been a year of politics and politricks, and I think that often makes business quite difficult because you have to wait for the administrations to really figure out how they're going to enable the growth of a sector. And I think in our context, and I won't belabor too much, is the GNU. And there's a body of literature called ELF, Ethnic and Linguistic Fractionalization. And simply one of the areas that have been studied using ELF as a seminal body of work is understanding when you've got a heterogeneous society, whether from a leadership point of view, at a citizenry point of view, how does that impact your policy-making outcomes? And the result is that the more heterogeneous a society is, the more difficult policy-making becomes. And so I think we're going to continue seeing that pressure point coming through as we try to figure out how to make the GNU work. But I think we're definitely going to have some pressure in getting alignment in thought, in vision, and ultimately the delivery against those policy outcomes and frameworks. Of course, there's been conversations about reshoring, dollarization, etc. And so we've seen massive developments, particularly from the BRICS countries, really, I think, un-Americanizing themselves and really starting to de-dollarize even in their borrowings. That's going to have implications for South Africa as well, as also you've seen the growth and the application, so many countries wanting now to be member states in terms of the BRICS grouping. And so there's a lot of work, or a lot of developments, I think, that are happening from a de-dollarization point of view. And I think that's really going to put us in an interesting space as a country as we try to continue growing into a US-based market, yet also our trading partners are moving away. And so I think that's going to be quite interesting. I mean, even with the Saudis as well, what's happening with the oil there. And when we think about also then kind of the juxtaposition between Trump's position on localization and we've seen that also play out in many countries globally, where they're trying to spur their local economy and insource, in essence, most of the capacity. The challenge is that there's a thing we often talk about as the revealed comparative advantage, which is in essence the thing that you're able to produce as a country at the lowest opportunity cost. And so when economies start to try to produce things that are even coming at an expensive cost for them just to make sure that they've localized, that creates an inflationary pressure point to the good that is being consumed. And so South Africa does have a high revealed comparative advantage in this sector. So how does that then play out? Hearing things about tariffs and all those things, how does it play out as we continue thinking about our investment mandate to support this sector? And I think from all the other speeches that are going to come, the whole thing about technology, big data, AI is going to continue to mainstream the conversation. And I think it's a big conversation here in terms of how do we really think meaningfully about the data economy and how we play and how we leverage it in that particular context. In fact, I was seeing now a headline that Telkom just won a court ruling to be able to go raid a company that stole consumer data. So these are the things that you guys are exposed to. But now there are new technologies that are emerging, there are new languages that are emerging. In the decentralized technology space, there's a language called Motoko, which you're able to then create canisters that delineate the data and truly decentralizes the data. And therefore, from a data security point of view, it enables you to truly, I think, protect your consumer data. And so this data economy is a big play. Even then, of course, data security is one of the big issues. And then, of course, the climate issue. We know Trump was, a famous line, drill, baby, drill. Really, I think, re-emphasizing his non-committal to decarbonization, to a climate-conscious future for the US. And that's going to have implications, of course. We know that he had initially in his first administration taken America out as a signatory to the Paris Agreement. And so again, I think there's probably something coming through on the back end of that as well, as we think about that. And so certainly, I think that's going to be interesting for us. And, as we think about sustainability, the conversation has come up already a number of times around impact sourcing. How do we continue double-clicking on that as industry practitioners to really ensure that we play our part in the social transformation of the people in our economy and making sure that, of course, people are included. And specifically, I think to this issue of impact sourcing, in South Africa, there are two kind of really, I think, scary economic kind of data points. The first is that we've seen an improvement in our unemployment numbers, but 60%, so 63% of those people who are unemployed are long-term unemployed. And what happens is that when you're long-term unemployed, your propensity to get reabsorbed diminishes significantly. And also, they come from poorer households. And so the literature suggests as well that people who come from more destitute spaces have more propensity to get tired from job seek, etc. That's one of the things. The other, which is again quite important for the sector, is there's something called the half-life gap, which in essence talks about how much time it would take for income convergence to take place from someone coming from the lowest earning household to the median. And that number is 22 and a half years in South Africa. And so in simply speaking, is that when you've got a sector like this one that is youth focused, is also impact sourcing focused, I think we might improve that number. We might shift a dial in improving these issues around the half-life gap in South Africa. And so certainly I think the impact as a massive focus is going to be quite key for us. And then I'll just quickly go through then what I think should inspire us in how we then think about use economic thought at least to inspire our thinking about the sector. There are four areas of study that I think are quite useful in how we think about it. One, we want to ignite growth. And so when we talk about agglomeration, it's clusters. And of course this was popularized in 1966, and when they were talking about the Marshalling district theory, and really looking around how do we use industrial nodes and districts to support the growth and development of the sector. And so I think there are many opportunities, and I think the Josie My Josie conversation is starting to think about how do we leverage agglomeration as an opportunity to truly, I think, ignite growth in the sector. Chaos theory, and here we're really around catalytic growth, and simply is that chaos theory is often also spoken about as the butterfly effect. And so it requires good understanding, systems thinking, where you understand that if I shift this knob in the system, it'll have a reverberating effect. And so how do we think about catalytic investing in this particular sector to truly give it a little bit of a J-curve as well? I mean, it is, of course, one of the fastest growing sectors in the country, but I think it's still got legs. And so let's pour some petrol on that and see how we go. Nudge theory, and I think, again, this was popularized by a Nobel laureate, Robert Thaler. And is that how do we think about growth along the fringes and incremental growth? And so how do we nudge the sector to grow? How do we think about the work that's happening now at the DTIC from an incentives point of view in how it nudges incremental growth in the sector? How do we think about reskilling as a re-nudge for growth in the sector, which can improve demand, etc.? And so nudge theory is something that can inspire us as we think about our businesses, that yes, there are opportunities to catalyze growth and have catalytic growth, but there's also just the stuff we can do to really improve the state of doing business in our economy to really ensure that we see growth in the sector. And the last is the Thucydidean trap. And this was, kind of literature coming, of course, from Thucydides, who studied the war between Sparta and Athens. And really, in essence, he was talking about that when there's an incumbent and a challenger, war is inevitable. And what happened in this context is that eventually Sparta and Athens went to war, but the Persians, who had struggled to get any hands on the Athenians, finally came in and they found a tired Athenian army, and they were able to take over that part of now Greece and Turkey. And so why this matters is that there are lots of moving parts. There's political issues, there's a whole lot of things, and don't find yourself lost in the complexity of the fight, that you eventually lose your core muscles as a sector to truly transform and grow sustainably. And so I was hoping that really, I think, taking a macro view around what are the developments happening globally, how do they support our thinking about our own sector, and also how do we just use some seminal foundational thinking to continue to inspire how we move on as a sector. Thank you very much.
Pick one more. Thank you. Very good.
Good morning, everyone. So how do we nudge everyone? How do we use this agglomeration to come back to Josie, my Josie? How do we make sure that the heart of the city works? So Gauteng, similar to many parts in the world, is facing numerous challenges in the old CBD areas. They were not designed for everyone. The services is lacking to carry that population that they have. And there's also been a global shift in how we think about how these centers should function. So I'm from province, and Gauteng Kokta got the EXCO approval to see how we can intervene as government also to make sure that we revitalize the CBDs in the Gauteng city region. And we have developed a strategy regarding this as part of the practical support from province's side. And key to this is partnerships between public and private sector to make sure that we maximize the growth opportunities, creating these dynamic city cores that can nudge the economic benefits, that can make sure that we benefit from the agglomeration that is needed. So the problem within these CBDs is circling around urban management. But you will see there's the social environment where we have an increasing homeless population, for instance. We have negative perceptions about the CBD. But then in terms of the spatial environment, we also have challenges with poor infrastructure maintenance, your poor bylaw enforcement, and also your hijacked buildings, especially within the city of Johannesburg. And then the economic environment, there's a disinvestment in these CBDs. People would rather be in Sandton than the CBD of Johannesburg. So there's some strategic objectives that we are looking at. You will see promoting spatial transformation and in creating inclusive economic prosperity, ensuring sustainable infrastructure development and maintenance, responding to the big climate conundrum, promoting heritage and the culture so that we do not gentrify this area, creating also smart 24-hour vibrant and safer CBDs so that we have increased access to Wi-Fi, for instance, and you create also an environment where tourism can thrive. We have 10 pilot CBDs in Gauteng, but today we are focusing on the city of Johannesburg. It's quite a big area. It's 17 square kilometers that is defined as the boundary of the Johannesburg CBD. And it has numerous challenges that has also been outlined in the previous slide, such as your hijacked building, your illegal changes in land uses, but it also has a lot of opportunity. You have high energy for the existing partners in the urban area. There's multiple precincts that's already identified, and there's really prospective investment opportunities within this area. Because you're sitting with very high densities, you can really leverage and use this. There's almost 1 million people living in this area. You have education there. You have the university sitting in that area. The age structure you will see is mostly the working age between your 15 and 64. So you have a really interesting dynamic within this area where a lot of opportunity can be unlocked. There's also a lot of environmental impact. Just to give you an idea of the challenges within Joburg, you have your unkept parks, your poor urban management, and the unintegrated transport problems that we have, sitting with a lot of traffic problems. So in terms of what we've identified through this process is that there's a common thread through all the 10 pilot CBDs that we looked at that is also true for Johannesburg, where you have poor bylaw enforcement. We need operationalization and implementation of the existing plans. Crime prevention is necessary, human investment targeting the social ills, informal trading management and regulation, but also retaining and attracting investment in the CBD, your social housing, your aging infrastructure, and also the mining issues that need to be addressed. So there was a clear alignment between what the CBD revitalization strategy that is coming from a provincial side is trying to achieve. And we could see this with the Josie My Josie initiative. And the clear key objectives being the same. And province signed a collaboration agreement with the Josie My Josie. The city of Johannesburg also signed a memorandum of agreement with the Josie My Josie initiative. And this key partnership on all levels, private, provincial, as well as local municipality, is key to getting the CBD of Johannesburg back to a functioning key core node of our Gauteng and also of South Africa. Thank you, ladies and gents.
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you to Sifiso. What an amazing context. What a challenge we face, but also what an opportunity we have. So what can I tell you about Josie My Josie? Well, let me share with you.
Josie My Josie. This is the heart of Mzansi, a city that gets its heartbeat from its people. Phela, we're a city with great history, diversity and opportunity. Josie My Josie. Yabona la, siyapusha, siyacreata, siyadominata, lalela, siya-operator. When they say resta, 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 we don't stop. We keep it moving. We are pioneers, lovers, and plugs. We are always chasing dreams right to the finish line. Josie My Josie, the city of gold. But the gold of our city is we, the people. Our resilience, our culture, our creativity. We are the backbone and hope for our city. And together, we'll make Josie the gold standard of cities around the world. A city that is safe for all. A city that is not built by skyscrapers, but by its people. A city where the unseen becomes seen and where the voiceless are heard. Some may look at our city and think, we have no way forward. But guess what? We will make one, because that is who we are. That is what we do. It's time for us, the people of Josie, to make this city of gold shine brighter than it ever has. It's time for all of us to help fix and create a city we can all proudly call Josie My Josie.
So that's our manifesto for Josie My Josie. Thank you very much. So Josie My Josie is a movement. It's a movement that is seeking to bring together the people of Johannesburg and the citizens of South Africa to really create a change. We've watched the steady demise of the Johannesburg inner city. It's a political battleground that has seen a war, an open war taking place. And in any war situation, the most visible consequences of that war are the loss of infrastructure and the damage to citizens. And that's what's been happening on our doorstep, just 30 kilometers from where we are today. If we don't do something about the Johannesburg CBD, then the Johannesburg CBD has only got 15 kilometers to move along the road to the Sandton CBD. That's not very far. So we must inspire the people of South Africa to do something about this. So we're a super connector. We're not the organization that is doing all the things that you see, and I'll share with you some of the things we have been doing. But we're a super connector of bringing together business, government, and civil society to take back control of our city, to re-love and reimagine the city and to re-experience the city that we know. So this is about our Constitution in action. Constitution Hill in the Braamfontein area is part of that, but this really is about us moving forward with 5 areas of strategic intervention. Starting, of course, with safety and security, because if we don't deal with the crime and the corruption and the safety measures, then nobody will want to come back into the city. Building on that with dealing with the social issues in the inner city, the homelessness, the drug abuse, the abuse of people in the city. Then building out an education-based frontier. One thing's very clear to us is that the economic logic for why Johannesburg was established has shifted. It was established as a mining hub by colonial mining houses over 140 years ago. That logic has gone. So is the future logic education? Is it business process outsourcing? Is it logistics? Well, all three, we believe, have got an important role to play in the commerce front end of our activities. And right at the heart of Johannesburg is the sports, art and culture, and making sure that that lives on. In that theme, we've got one of the most amazing creatives as part of the Josie My Josie leadership, Malu Mashlangu, who spent 8 years in the US and has 2 Super Bowl ads to his name. But he came back when Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's, who's a fellow director at Josie My Josie, asked Malu to come back, and he created the Josie My Josie brand. Themed, of course, around other cities around the world. I'm sure that many of you will have in your wardrobe a t-shirt that says something along the lines of, I love New York, or I love something. Would it surprise you to know that that campaign is about to turn 50? It was formed in 1977 when Manhattan and the villages of New York were facing the same problems that we face in our CBD. Nearly 50 years ago. So we're forming Josie My Josie for the next 50 years, underpinned by the brilliance of these brands and the merchandise that is really building from this. But my day job is as CEO of IQ Business. So what is the role of business in the regeneration of a city? And let me just share one perspective, very quick perspective on IQ Business. So we've been around in Johannesburg for 26 years. I've been the CEO for the last 14 years and part of the team for 15 years. We are the largest South African management and technology services organization with 1,500 team members. But you see in the center of our accolades here is that we're a B Corporation. If you don't know what a B Corporation is, please don't look it up now, but make a note. To have a look this evening and see what the B Corporation movement is all about, using business as a force for good. And the reality is, if we don't do something about Johannesburg and about the demise of the Johannesburg inner city, we believe that that threatens our business. And we need to step forward to do something about it. So let me show you my last video, which gives you a slightly more commercial focus on what we need to do with the city.
This is Josie, a city built by the people for the people, with a vibrant inner city life, a cultural melting pot of magic, the most powerful commercial center on the African continent. So, what does a city like this, with life flowing through its veins, know about decay, destruction, decline? You see, from the hardest times emerge the most purposeful ambitions. Finding gold in the darkest places runs generations deep. Equality, human dignity, and security is a right and inspires the design for the rescue of Josie. Josie My Josie is a movement for the people, by the people, enabling the future by creating sustainable precincts, building on and reflecting the heritage of Johannesburg for the next generation of city dwellers, innovators, and visitors. Josie, a city with a legacy connecting with its future. A Josie that is economically boosted, inspires inclusive growth. A Josie that is digitally interconnected, arouses the world stage. This is Josie, the heartbeat of South Africa's people, attracting creative talent, development, and opportunity. This is Josie My Josie, a city built by the people, for the people, by you, for you. Join us. Josie My Josie.
So we're serious about the opportunity to join us, to be part of what we are attempting to do. We've already been joined by many other organizations, with Anglo-American as the anchor in the midst of our organizations, with the other brands that you see before you here, and many others that really do have a stake in the future of the Johannesburg CBD. To really get the ball rolling, we've taken back control of the Nelson Mandela Bridge, totally destroyed in the Johannesburg inner city, but this is what it looks like today. With the help of ABSA and PSG Group, we're taking back control of the gateways in and out of the CBD, redecorating those gateways, making them safe zones to come in and out of the city. Our next project is a major project, having succeeded in regenerating Emirates Park, or Ellis Park, the rugby stadium and the train station next door, in time for the All Blacks. You can see here on the corner of the M1 and the M2 next to Standard Bank, this is what we call the Field of Dreams, which is aligned to the Maharishi Invincibility Institute and the students at WITS and UJ. Really exciting developments. And then lastly, in terms of the news over recent times, the dedication of number 45 Main Street by Anglo-American to the Maharishi Invincibility Institute, a major step forward for education in the city. And then next door at 47 Main Street, the dedication of that building to the WITS Crucible, which is the Center for Entrepreneurship and New Business Ventures, which is now underway there. And in fact, you can see here Zebulon Vilakazi, the VC of WITS University, and Duncan Oneblood, the CEO of Anglo-American. In fact, last night they were at the opening of the new WITS Anglo-American Digital Dome, the old planetarium at WITS University. We had the special opening last night. It is phenomenal, I can tell you, and that is the next phase of our work into the new year. So that's what Josie My Josie is all about. If you're interested to find out more, have a look at our website. Thank you very much to BPESA for the opportunity.